showed up to the store when I wasn't here and told him, hey, I just want to give you one last hug. So he agrees, and she tackles him and bites his neck.
This is Small Business Celebration, where we introduce you to successful small business owners at their place of business so that you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business and get your next big breakthrough. Welcome to another fantastic episode here on Small Business Celebration. We're going to be talking about what to do when your business outgrows you. We're also going to be talking about, okay, my business partner's gotten this passion project that they want to turn into business, but how does that affect my business? And to guide us through all that is Jared Cope, the co-owner of Cope's Tackle and Rod Shop. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Mike, thanks for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.
And for Visioneers who don't know who you are you, and what is it that you do?
Michael, my name's Jared Cope. I'm the co-owner of Cope's Tackle and Rod Shop. I have some interest in a handful of other businesses in town, a lot of real estate, financial services type stuff. And my business partner here and I also have recently acquired the Sportsman Boat and RV show. That show's coming up, so we're spending a lot of time working on that right now.
You didn't just start this business. You came out of the Marine Corps and started something else. What happened?
So I did. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2005, Michael, and of all things, I got into the real estate industry as a real estate licensee. It was a big change. I was a infantry guy in the Marine Corps, jumping out of helicopters, shooting stuff, and then decided to help people find homes, and that's really where I got my first business experience, if you will.
How long were you involved in the real estate business, and what prompted you to open up the bait and tackle shop?
So I'm still very actively involved in the real estate business. That is I call it my day job.
Right.
I have some great business partners there as well, and we do quite a few sales. 10 years after that I started is when I ended up opening the shop. I'm going to give you the short version of a long story. I was working like crazy like everybody else does. I was never outside, never doing the things I enjoyed, just plugging away trying to build my empire.
Right.
My health care is through the VA. Sometimes that can be a little questionable. I think it's gotten a lot better. But anyway, I went in for a routine appointment and the VA told me that I was dying. They told me that I probably had a year left to live.
Really?
Turns out I was perfectly fine, but I got to spend 24 hours thinking that I was about to die. After that, I said, well, I'm going to start fishing and going outdoors and doing the things I enjoy again. And so I started fishing a lot more, and being the kind of broken business person that I am, I instantly wanted to turn it into a business, and here we are 10 years later.
You were one of those people that you were driving down the road and you're looking for a bait shop, and you're looking for a bait shop, and you're looking for a bait shop, and you were looking for a bait shop, and there was no bait shop to be had.
Yeah, Michael, more like I was into some of the better gear, and I had to order that stuff online.
Okay.
And so it would come, and then it's not quite what I'm looking for, so I'd send it back. And so, believe it or not, I was at a fishing club meeting called Kern County Bassmasters.
Right.
And I said, hey, somebody needs to open a store. And one of the guys said, oh, that can't be done. It'll never work.
You're one of those types. Don't tell you it can't be done.
Yes, sir, exactly. And I was like, well, of course it could be done. And he said, no, it can't. And I said, okay, I'll do it then.
When you opened up this location almost 10 years ago, there was nothing out here.
No, sir, yeah.
Why here? Did you foresee the way this would turn into a prime location as it has?
I've got it. I'm going to give God and luck credit on this one. We were looking for a space for quite some time. Our budget obviously wasn't very high. This was an old dilapidated building, and I got in touch with the owner, and I said, hey, will you give me this just really good rate on the rent if I fix the building up? And he agreed, and so we jumped in. And I was happy that it was on a main street. It was on Callaway. That was still a fairly decent road. And then it just grew around us. And it's been, I'm very thankful for that.
Little did you know.
Yeah, just no idea. And I will go, again, I'm still new in the retail end of things. This is 10 years in retail. But I will say, just like real estate, location, that's what matters.
Did you discover your love of fishing prior to the Marines, or when you started getting into real estate and needed an escape?
I fished a little bit when I was young. We would cut school and go to the river.
Right.
But when I was in the Marine Corps, that's when I really started to fish a lot. I had a lot of friends from back in Texas, and we'd go back there and bass fish whenever we had time off. It was just a great way to kind of zone out and get away from everything.
Right.
And then I came back to Bakersfield, and I didn't pursue that because I was working, raising kids, doing all the regular life stuff. When I awoke, and after that almost gonna die thing, that's what took me back to it.
When you were in the Marine Corps and you were stationed on a ship, Did you shift off the off the bow of the ship?
No, sir, but we always asked if that was going to be an option, but no, they didn't let us. So I spent a lot of time on a ship, but the Navy people really don't like the Marines on the ship, right? We're extra cargo for them, so we just kind of laid low and hid.
Allison Hickman recommended you to us. How did you meet Allison?
My ex-wife,
Okay.
who I'm still friends with and is a business partner in one of the businesses I'm involved in. Allison's husband was her teacher in high school.
Okay.
So somehow they were connected on social media.
Right.
And at the point that we were looking for someone to run the boat and RV show, I reached out to all my partners and said, hey, this is what I'm looking for.
Right.
If you have any recommendations, please let me know. And a couple came in, and Allison was one of them.
And now she's running the boat and RV show for you.
Correct. And it's her first year. I feel bad. That's a kind of a unique business because it's only once a year.
Right.
So it takes a long time to learn and adjust because you're
And
not...
what did I do last year or 3 years ago?
Yeah. And so this is my third year involved with it, and so her first. So I can see the stress in her eyes. I'm like, don't worry, it gets
easier.
It gets easier. It gets a lot easier.
And if you're looking for a new house that is by a great bait and tackle shop, might I suggest that you reach out to Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty, born and raised and never left Bakersfield. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. And Visioneers, if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and your question could appear here on Small Business Celebration, just like Lori, who asks, our company is expanding swiftly and it's surpassing what I can manage with just myself and a small team. How did you expand your enterprise?
I'm a big believer, Michael, in leveraging help through others, growing together. I have this focus, the people that work for me, this started on the real estate side. I want them to become millionaires, right? And if I can make them millionaires, in the process, inevitably I'm going to, make some money as well.
Right.
And that doesn't always happen, but as long as I'm focusing my attention to help them grow, I found that, the side effect of that is that I'm going to grow as well.
Is it okay for your sales team to drive Lamborghinis?
I'm perfectly okay with that. I'd be happy. I would love every one of them to drive a Lamborghini and have another one at home in the garage.
Sure. As this business grew, you got to the point that it started outgrowing you and what you could manage. How did you deal with that?
So here at the tackle shop, Michael, it was a little different. Our sales team here is typically younger people. They're just out of high school, and our development here is more teaching them how to have a work ethic and show up on time. And so that was a big change for me. And when I opened this, I thought, hey, I'm going to open this and I'll hire some people and I'll continue doing my day job, and
Right.
I'll come in the evenings. So what that started as, I was here at 6 in the morning. At 9 a.m. I'd go back to the real estate side. I'd come back and check in at lunch, and I'd come back at 5 and close the store at 9 p.m., right? And that was okay for a year or two, but at a certain point I started to get a little wore out, and I brought in some help, and the business was growing. But at the 5-year mark, I really realized I'd hit my leadership ceiling with the business, right? I was still passionate about it, but I was torn in too many directions. We weren't growing like we should. The customer service wasn't where I wanted it, and we were just running into a lot of walls. And that's when I brought in my business partner, Seth Masdero.
How did you meet Seth?
So it's funny, Seth was actually a rep for one of the companies that distributes products for us.
Okay.
So I kind of...
He was already in the industry.
Yeah, I knew him through that, and I know that that's a good job when you're younger, but it's a lot of time on the road.
Right.
He was in a long-term relationship. They just recently got married in Hawaii. I was at their wedding. I just knew that wasn't probably a long-term option for him, and he was a hustler, and through a series of 5 or 6 conversations, he ended up agreeing. But I will tell you, so he lived with his girlfriend at the time in Long Beach, and they lived in almost like a condo, if you will, but you could see water from 3 sides of the house,
Wow.
right? So he tells me, he goes, hey, I want to take this opportunity. However, she's got to agree to move to Bakersfield.
Sure. Where there's not a lot of ocean.
Yeah. And so instantly I'm like, well, there goes that. He's out.
Sure.
And so I said, well, do me a favor, hey, bring her up and let's give her a tour of the town. So she comes up, and it's like July, and I want to say it was like 112.
Right.
So they pull into town.
Ideal
Yeah,
time.
It's crazy. But But as we go out, I'm trying to show them some neighborhoods. She starts asking some questions where I think, hey, maybe we have a shot. So we go to a regular neighborhood, and she goes, well, where does everybody park? I was like, well, I don't know. You park in your driveway, in your garage, maybe in the street. She goes, well, you know what I mean. When everybody gets home from work, where do they park? I was like, driveway, garage, right? So in Long Beach, if they left on the weekend, they'd have to park a few miles away and take an Uber back home. So I was like, all right, so that was a good one. And then she said something like, how long does it take you to get across town? And I was like, 15 minutes maybe? And she goes, okay, what about in traffic? I was like, 17 minutes? So her commute to work down there was, I think it was 2 hours each way. Yeah. And she worked like 20 miles from her house. And so anyway, once she realized the quality of life could be a lot better here, she was on board, and they.
When Visioneers on the street ask me what are the two major things that I've learned interviewing guests on Small Business Celebration, the first thing I tell them is never, ever get a business partner. The second thing I've learned is the best thing you could ever do in business is have a partner.
Okay.
How did you qualify your partner as the right partner for your business?
I have a very strict interview process that we follow most of the time.
What is that?
I always start with like a DISC assessment. I'm sure if you're familiar with the DISC assessment, just to kind of get an idea of if they're the driver or the more C personality. I want to know what their core character beliefs are.
Right.
And then I go through a series of interviews, and not one, not two, not three, but like 4 or 5. And I want to know about their family, their significant other, where they came from. I want to really get to know the person. So as we've developed that friendship, now I know I'm getting to see the real them, not necessarily just, who they want to show me. And that doesn't work on every hire.
Right.
But something like a business partner, that's a lifelong commitment. It's like a marriage.
Right.
Probably more lifelong than most marriages.
Right, sure. And it's somebody that if you wanted to sell the business to, you could trust that you could sell the business to them.
100%. And I'm sure, if I was ever to get out of this, Seth would be the natural fit, and that's where it would go. Or hopefully we grow and grow and grow, and then maybe we both sell one day and, spend our days fishing. So again, with most of my business partners, they've turned into my closest friends in my life, and again, I'm very thankful to have good people. I'm also, if it's the wrong person, we're not afraid to get out of it early on and fast, if that makes sense.
You're in real estate. You've got the boat and RV show. You've got the bait and tackle shop. You've got the whole cattle business that we haven't even spoken about yet. How do you keep your sanity?
Michael, I'm a little broken. I don't think I'm regular. I'm not one to really sit still. I also have a lot of hobbies I really enjoy, and I've got to give credit to a couple other businesses that I'm involved in. I'm a partner in a lending company, a property management company, and the
When do you sleep?
I have really good staff that I really trust, and really good business partners. That is the key, and my focus is always on them, and then they focus on the business, and it works well.
And that brings us to the Visioneer Game. Now, if you're not familiar with the way the Visioneer Game works, I have a random word generator here on my phone. I have no idea what the words the random generator are going to create, but more importantly, neither does our guest. And our guest has to take each of 3 words that I give him and somehow associate each word with his business. Now, Jared, you do realize that not just the real estate industry, not just the boat and RV industry, not just the bait and tackle industry and the cattle industry, but they're all dependent upon you getting all 3 of these words correct. And if you don't, it all is doomed for failure.
All right, fair enough.
No pressure.
No pressure. No time limit on this, right? Like, give me a couple days.
Exactly. Your first word is ceremony.
Ceremony? Mm-hmm. There is a lot of ceremony in the fishing industry. Yeah.
How so?
At the end of the tournaments, they have a whole weigh-in. Everybody comes out, and the top guys have to hold up their fish, take pictures. It's a very ceremonial event.
Very good. 1 for 1. Well done, you. See, our second word is engineer.
You have to engineer a lot of solutions to a lot of problems. I always say that my job is just to fix problems or engineer solutions.
There we go. 2 for 2. Well done. Okay, it all comes down to this.
Okay.
Report.
That's an interesting random word.
I told you, these are totally random.
So again, as a business owner with multiple employees, you really have to have good reporting systems so everybody can, trickle up the chain of command and let you know what's going on so you can stay on top of things.
Congratulations, that's 3 for 3. Well done, you. But there was more.
I've got to jump back to ceremony.
Okay.
I had 2 employees here that I think we're going to tell a story about later.
Okay.
Who actually had a wedding ceremony on a bass boat
Really?
at the Delta on the water. Yes. So I think that was
bonus. That's a bonus. That's a bonus. There you go. Love it. Love it. Well, and many businesses have employees, including this one, and you had. I can see by your face. Oh boy, here we go. I see this one coming. What happened?
Over the years, we've had plenty of unique stories, but when you asked me this question, Michael, the one that came to mind was we were early on. We'd been open maybe a year, 18 months, and I had a young female manager that was kind of running the back office, and she had some retail experience. Did a great job. She's still a friend now and works for us a little bit here and there. And we had another employee here. This young man was in a relationship with another young lady. She became pregnant, and he started seeing the office manager on the side. This is all news to me. I don't.
You had no idea.
I don't know what's going on, and I'm, just busy trying to make a buck.
Right.
Well, it starts to come to light that this is happening. He calls me one day. I'm in Los Angeles, and he goes, "Hey, I need you here right away. It's an emergency." And I'm like, "Man, I don't know what's going on." So
and he never calls that it's an emergency.
No. This is a first. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "Just get here as fast as you can."
Okay.
So I'm doing 100 miles an hour up to 5. I get here. There's blood on the floor. She's locked in the bathroom. I can hear her like sobbing and crying. I look at him. I'm like, "What is happening here?" He goes, "Well, I told her I couldn't see her anymore because my baby's about to be born. We've been dating." So the whole story comes out.
Oh no.
She kind of has a fit, cuts herself a little bit, locks herself in the bathroom. We talk her off the cliff. I tell her, "Hey, I need you to just take 2 weeks off. It's paid. Just don't come in here. Take a few days off. Let's kind of sort through this."
Right.
Okay? So 2 days later, he calls me crying. Apparently, she showed up to the store when I wasn't here and told him, "Hey, I just want to give you one last hug." So he agrees, and she tackles him and bites his neck. Hey, crazy, right? So at this point, I've got no choice. I've got to let her go.
Right.
Again,
did you let him go?
Well, not at that point. No, he's the victim. He's like, he's crying to me about how he's like in an unsafe work environment. So we let her go. She's a good person, a good employee. Just had a moment of craziness apparently. So we ended up getting her a job through some friends with a fishing tackle store in Northern California.
Right.
And about 30 days later, he gives me notice. He's quitting so he can move up there with her. And so, and I'm going to fast forward to today. They've been happily married for I think 5 years now, and are expecting their second child. And also,
what happened to the first kid?
this is the crazier part of the story. So they moved to Texas. The first kid and that kid's mom became friends with the new wife. She moved to Texas with them. I think they all lived together for a while. Yeah. So I don't know. You can't make this stuff up. And I hope they get to see this. I'm not going to mention any names, but I know them all still today. It's a very interesting, yeah. And again, a lot of that was my failure to supervise, or I could have cut a lot of that stuff off early on. So lesson learned.
And that brings us to our second Visioneer question, which is also brought to you by Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty. And by the way, Visioneer Nation, there's no conflict of interest here. Jared and Mike, they've known each other for years.
Yeah, I really look up to Mike. Michael, he's one of the best agents in this town. And I mean, his attention to detail, his creativity, he is first class. No one's going wrong if they hire Mike Saba. Yeah, Mike's a friend more than a competitor. I would happily hand him a deal if it came down to that. Yeah, real estate's a unique industry. There's thousands of licensed real estate agents, but there's probably 150 of us that are full-time professionals, and Mike is far and above one of those.
And this Visioneer question is by Jacob, who asks, "My spouse, who's also my business partner, wants to transform his passion into a company. What possible obstacles should we aim to avoid?"
I think being a business partner with a spouse that's got to be difficult. That's not something I've necessarily experienced. In my experience, my passion projects that turn into businesses tend to work for me because I'm very passionate about it, so I put the time into it. But time is what a lot of people don't have. And so I'm wired a little differently. Like I don't really watch TV. I don't sit around on the couch after work, so I always feel bad, like, hey, maybe one of my business partners is going to feel neglected if I get into something else.
Right.
But the time that I'm doing something else is that's my free time.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
So if they're willing to sacrifice that free time to put into a second or third or fourth business or whatever it is, then I think by all means go for it. But if you still think you're going to do the 9 to 5 and add that to the plate, it's probably a bad idea.
Your passion project is the cattle business.
I'd say currently, I mean,
Right.
we're sitting in what used to be a passion project that is
Right.
now a very successful retail store.
Why did you get into the cattle business in the first place?
I'll go back to the not spending enough time outside. We touched on this on the phone, and we don't need to go too deep in this, but I think right now America is in a very weird spot, especially men in general. We're not doing hard things. We're not working outside. We're not working with our hands.
Right.
And I think through that you start to see the rise of mental illnesses. I read a statistic that said that in the United States, the number one cause of death for a male under 45 is deaths of despair.
Right.
So that's suicide or drug overdose for the first time in history. That's crazy to me. I mean, these are guys that are in the prime of their life. I think what's happening is they're not outside doing hard stuff.
And cattle is hard.
For me, that was the answer. I had learned to do things I didn't know how to. I've been involved in cattle for a long time. It just, more recently, I've put a lot of time to try to grow that business a little bit. It's not very profitable, but I do enjoy it.
At what point do you realize that, okay, I'm spending too much time in the cattle business and it's neglecting the other businesses that generate income?
I saw this chart one time. It's like a goal setting chart, right? But you take all these different things in your life, like your family, maybe your spouse, your business, your faith, and it's like you want to allocate 10% to all these things.
Right.
But it's never that cut and dry. There's
Right.
some times where you're spending a lot more time over here, and then you bounce over here for a few days and bounce around. And for me, that's how my business life is. I might spend a full week doing just this thing, taking care of a few phone calls here and there, and then bounce around. So it's
Right.
not as cut and dry as it's not schedulable, if that makes sense.
Right.
I can't put out a calendar and say for 2 hours I'm here, an hour I'm here, 30 minutes I'm here. It's different than that.
And then you have some wacko that gives you a call and says, can you be on my YouTube channel for an hour?
For sure. Well, the wacko is actually one of my newer business partners, Allison. that then introduced me to Michael.
So what do you do to relax?
I like to do very, very hard exercise.
Like what?
For example, last year I put on an 80-pound pack and I went to do the 12-hour walk.
Okay.
So I hooked up the bike path and I walked it all the way across town and all the way back, and I think made like 37, 38 miles in my 12 hours.
Wow.
And that was, that's just cleared my brain, and
Sure.
I was good for another year. Yeah, so this year I did the Miracle Mile out in the mud. That was, so again, hard physical activity is what helps my brain slow down.
It's no secret that there are a lot of business owners that are struggling right now. Is the American dream dead?
No, sir, I don't think so at all.
How so?
I believe if you're willing to work hard, you can make a lot of things happen. Now, not everything. We've talked about a lot of my business successes today, not my business failures.
Right.
And I want people to know for sure that every failure is just leading you that much closer to a success. And so I don't think the American dream is dead. I think generationally, I don't see people willing to work and do things or take risks. Most of these places, this is another crazy story, we've penciled out on a napkin somewhere eating dinner or having a drink at a bar and running the budget and just getting a rough draft of what it would look like.
Right.
And from that, we can say, hey, this can work or it can't work, right? And that's one of my very favorite things to do. So no, to answer your question, I don't think it's done. I'm certainly not giving up on it because there's a lot more things I'd like to be involved in. I just haven't had time to get started yet.
Jared, this has been a real privilege. Thank you for joining us here on Small
Thank you
Business
so
Celebration.
much for having me, Michael. I appreciate it. It's been an honor.
If visionaries want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
My social media is not the best, but you can find me on there, Jared Cope. I do check the messages. And so, again, if there's anybody I can help out there, please don't hesitate to hit me up.
And where are we?
Right now, we're at Cope's Tackle and Rod Shop on Callaway Drive, 1654 Callaway Drive. Hopefully, in about 8 or 9 days, we'll be open at 3501 Mallview Road, Suite 101 as well.
And after a quick message from Planned Exits, we're going to be talking about Why you should be sympathetic to another person's ideas or desires.
Thank you, Michael. I often get asked who my target audience is at planned exits. Typically, I'm working with business owners of profitable companies that range between $1 to $10 million in annual revenue. Did you know of the 33 million companies in the United States, only 10% actually surpassed the $1 million annual revenue mark, and only 4% of all businesses ever reach it to $5 million. To learn more, please visit plannedexits.com.
Why you should be sympathetic to the other person's wishes and desires. My wife is a huge fan of cooking competition shows. You know, the shows where you got a whole series of chefs that have to go through a whole bunch of challenges, and the one that's most successful is crowned the victor. And she loves it because you get to learn about the cooks and the chefs and what they've overcome, and you get to see them overcome challenges, and yet you get to see them work together and apart, all so that they can achieve the same common goal, to win. Several years ago, there was a show that came on Netflix called Drive to Survive. Now, I happen to really enjoy Formula One. I like a lot of different kind of racing. But when the graphic for the show came up on the television, it was a race car driver in his fire suit and his helmet, and my wife immediately thought, NASCAR. Oh, look, they're making a left turn. Hey, they're making a left turn. What? They're making a left turn. Boring, in her mind. And I thought about it, I really want to see this show. So I started reading the bio on it, and I said to my wife, you know, you like shows about people and their personalities, right? Yeah, well, this is a show about race car drivers and the teams that help the race car driver. You also like shows about where groups of people work together to achieve a common goal, to win, right? Yeah, well, this is definitely that. Not only that, but you like seeing all kinds of exotic locations, like seeing Australia and Spain and France and all kinds of different places around the world, right? Well, yeah. Well, let's give it a shot. She absolutely fell in love with this show. So much so that when Netflix announced a few weeks ago that the new season was coming up, she marked it on the kitchen calendar. All because I took a moment to be sympathetic to her point of view, to her ideas, and her desires. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here on Small Business Celebration, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business, and we'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough.
3 ways to become a better business owner, in my opinion, are to treat your employees better. If they're the wrong employee, then you just shouldn't be in business with them. Work harder applies in a lot of cases, but not necessarily all cases. Don't overthink it. I think a lot of people overthink simple stuff these days.
The one thing to look for when picking a fishing rod is?
Well, that's going to be a super complex answer, probably one I can't give. We have over 500 different models of rods. There's so many options. Get the best one your budget can afford. The best time to catch a fish is always going to be dusk or dawn.
Why?
I just think that's when they're feeding. It's low light conditions, and they can, it's just the prime feeding times. I don't know. I don't make the rules. I just follow them. The hardest place to fish, Michael, is definitely Seven Oaks. I've actually had some board members there calling me asking if we can help stop the kids from fishing there because they don't want them fishing there. I said, guys, I don't know what to tell you. I'm promoting fishing, right? So that would be the hardest place because you're going to have the old guys in golf carts chasing you down. The best way to fall out of a boat is probably to drink the night before and then again while you're on the boat. Yeah, you got to pick one or the other. The biggest fish I've ever caught, I'm going to do freshwater and saltwater. Freshwater is an 11-pound, 6-ounce bass that is hanging on the wall here. Over 10 pounds is considered a lunker. And then saltwater, a tuna, probably 72, 74 pounds, haven't broke the 100-pound mark. So the place to find the biggest fish is probably a place that you can't see with your naked eye. So you need to be using fish finders, depth finders, things like that.